The Seattle Seahawks absolutely bludgeoned the Kansas City Chiefs today, 33-16, in a game where you walk away saying, what's the good and what's the bad? But when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks today after this football game, it's really nothing but good across the board, with one little tiny itty-bitty exception that we're not going to cover until the end on this little quick breakdown in regards to this fantastic preseason game, as the Seattle Seahawks are slowly building their way to hopefully the team we think they can be this season. You don't arrive there overnight. You build it by performance after performance. You build it with strong training camp practice after strong training camp practice. And the Seattle Seahawks have done this every step of the way throughout this 2025 preseason period. Your Seattle quarterbacks today were efficient, were right, and were true. 17 of 21, only 21 passes in this football game. You know it was a good game when that was the case, or you just didn't have the football. 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, nearly 10 yards per average per attempt by all three quarterbacks playing down the line, 139.9 rating. So everything was great there on the surface of it, but this was a game about how you ran the football. Right from the start was Zach Charbonnet. He was shot out of a cannon this football game, gaining yard after yard on every attempt, averaging almost 9 yards per average on his attempts. George Holani comes in there. He matches him at almost 10 yards per average on attempt. Every running back in this game was running well, was finding holes. It wasn't really until about the end of the game that the Chiefs were actually able to start to kind of compound and tighten things up on the inside and make things really difficult for your Seattle Seahawks then for the running backs, partly because the Hawks just got so predictable at that point because they were just like, let's just run this clock out and get this thing out. But you were doing what you wanted to offensively in this game. Whatever you decided to do, it was working. Klint Kubiak was again in his bag. He starts out the first drive with a lot of inside running with Charbonnet and A-gap runs and B-gap runs. Then he gets out to Holani. It's more of the stretch plays, and we're going to get outside a little bit. Then you start getting to more of the pitch plays as the game goes along. Good mixture between under center and shotgun kind of stuff. You have Sam Darnold in this game, 4 of 4 for 34 yards in that first drive. Comfortable, on time. And the thing that really stood out about Kubiak in this game that's so very important with him is that a lot of what is the best parts about an offensive coordinator and how they attack their job and what they do for quarterbacks specifically is you have as a quarterback, a lot of times you're throwing 30, 35, 40 times in a football game. How many of those attempts from an offensive coordinator's perspective can I make easier on them? Can I make it to where they're not going to have to strain and go through multiple reads and avoid a pass rusher here that I couldn't chip block because I had to get a guy out running another route from the running back position, but instead ones where I get a guy rolling back in space and there's a free guy clear and easy right underneath for him to throw it right to, and he doesn't have to even think about that. And that's what you did today. So much of it off the play action, under center stuff, where the quarterback would come back out across the way and bam, right there, he'd have an open guy, an easy completion to be had. On those 21 attempts, I don't know how many easy ones you had in there, but there was quite a few of them in there. And that alone made it a very successful day for Kubiak. And that alone is another thing that you should always be thinking about in regards to this Seahawks offense for this season, because it has been missing so mightily from our offenses in recent years, where whether it was Waldron or whether it was Grubb last year, oftentimes you were making the quarterback position hard to play. You're making it difficult for those guys, not easier for those guys. And this is a centerpiece of this offense, is that it will make it easier for these quarterbacks to execute the game plan, because there's a lot of this that you're just scheming up to make nice and simple for them, including with Sam Darnold right out the gate, getting him some easier throws there so they get into a little bit of a rhythm. Hawks, though, throughout this game ran the ball well. They were efficient offensively. They didn't have to throw very often. Drew Lock came in for Sam Darnold, and he played really well. I thought his decision-making was smart. He avoided that silly kind of interception that we saw last week with the pick that he threw. He had a beautiful little nine route fade ball in there to Bobo. Bobo went up and climbed the ladder. Bobo had 2 touchdown receptions in this game, but climbed the ladder beautifully to go make the reception. It was such a nice throw, though, as well, where you felt the velocity in that ball just about like leave an indentation on the chest plate of Bobo on the catch. Then Bobo on the bubble screen, which was a cool play as well, where he catches it. Bobo's not exactly known as being like a yak pure kind of guy, but makes the bubble screen catch there with 10 yards to go, makes a nice cut at the end of the play to kind of jump on in through the end zone. He was good in this game as well, more solidifying his spot on this roster as a guy, not just for what he brings you as a receiver, but he brings as a blocker, what he brings in as a special teamer. As well, in the same kind of vein, Derek Young had a really nice game, 3 catches out there, was really good after the catch in addition to running some really nice routes. A guy who's been here for a couple of years and has been developing as well, like Bobo, been in the program for a couple of years. A guy that's going to be very hard for you to find a way to cut him because of how good he has played this preseason period. And this does bring up kind of an interesting situation in regards to, what you do with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. If those 2 guys are going to make the roster, and then you also have Torrey Horton potentially making the roster in addition to that, does that leave MVS as maybe potentially a bit of the odd man out here? Defensively in this game, you got a really big 4th down stop early on in the game when you had more of your second string / quasi starters out there here and there. It was a bit peppered in, but a good job by the defense to get strong. And Julian Love came in and made just this awesome play where it's 4th down. They got to get the 1st down conversion. He comes up and leaps up at the point of impact there where the running back is just trying to fall forward there to gain that 1/2 yard. He not only makes the collision point as he's being blocked, but then he grabs the guy around his waist and twists and turns him around to keep him from getting any forward momentum to go in and get that 1st down. That is a hell of a play there by Julian Love coming in a preseason game, a vet who could easily have taken his foot off the gas in this particular game going, hey, I'm just out here to get my reps as a 1st-string guy, get a little bit of a sweat, get myself prepared for the regular season. And instead what he's doing is he's saying, hey, no, youngsters, this is the standard. Doesn't matter whether it's practice, doesn't matter whether it's preseason, this is how you play hard. You are going to care. It does matter. How you practice, how you play in this preseason, it carries over when you're trying to set that standard that these teams are, that these vets on this team are, to try to get this team elevating itself up into a better status, into a contending status, if you were. Defensively speaking, where there were a lot of stars, no, just everybody was just kind of doing their job in this game. It really stood out to me in a lot of ways that the Chiefs' offense and passing attack throughout the course of this game was nothing but dink and dunk city. There was no attempts to really try to push the ball down the football field, no attempts to really try to challenge this defense. It just felt like the Chiefs just wanted to kind of inch their way up the football field throughout this game and not really try to challenge Seattle too much. And it just didn't leave the Chiefs offense feeling like it was able to do too much. They ended up finding 1 touchdown on a throw down there in the back of the end zone to Tanyan, which was a really nice play by the quarterback to go find him. But aside from that, Chiefs offense had nothing much to offer in this football game. Hawks did a good job of supplying pressure and finding ways to get that done on that side of it, but I don't think there was a lot of extravagant things the Seahawks defense was doing. Only a couple times in this game do I think they really tried to dial up blitzes on certain key 3rd downs in this game, and it worked out really well. The blitzes were able to get in there and force the quarterback to get rid of the ball and get you on a 4th down stop at that point. You also had a safety in this game from another good player who's really had a really good training camp and a guy that you're really watching closely, Brandon Peely, was able to go get a safety after the Seahawks got stopped on a 4th down, right down by the goal line. It's kind of the benefits of that as a coach is when you go for that on the 4th down by the goal line is that you put the opposition's offense then on the 2-yard line, on the 1-yard line, and that puts them in a bit of a pickle there trying to get out from around there. But Peely did a good job shooting the gap and then getting his hands on the running back, pulling him right down to the ground instantaneously to go get that safety and really fully kind of shift the momentum of this game into the Seahawks' back pocket. They ran with that opportunity, but this was a game about control. This was a game about dominating the line of scrimmage. This is a game about playing efficiently and effectively on both sides of the football, with the one exception being your special teams play in this football game, where you once again allowed a couple of returns back in the kick return game, which had a little concern. There's 3 really good ones in this game from the kick return unit for the Chiefs. And then at the end of this game on a punt return, you allowed a punt return touchdown. The return unit is one of those places that you did worry a little bit with on this team as a bit of a carryover from last year, where they weren't always strong last year, where there could be some issues at times last year in the return game, both punt and kick return, showing up again here in this preseason contest. Hopefully something that they shore up here as we get to the regular season, and that the issues today were born out of guys that aren't actually going to be on the roster, especially on that punt return touchdown. You're trotting a lot of guys out there that aren't even going to be on the practice squad, so maybe not the biggest of deals in that moment that broke down in that way. But this is a successful preseason game, no matter how you slice it. This has been a successful training camp and preseason period for your Seattle Seahawks if they're looking to build towards being a team that can actually make some noise this year and not just scratching on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoff picture, but truly able to make some noise. This is the kind of team that you want to see come together in this way, where the whole plan is making sense and how it's going to take form. Dominant defense, a team that can run the ball effectively and efficiently, quarterbacks that can play within themselves, offensive coordinator that can structure things for that said quarterback to find them some really easy throws throughout the course of the game, get them in the rhythm, and you're rolling with it all coming together. Now we just need the special teams unit to finish shoring up its side of it, specifically the defending of the kickoffs and the punt returns. But I can't find any real big black mark from this football game where you go, oh, this was bad. That everything was all good. And this team looks prepared to finally go out there and make some noise this season. Preseason wins don't necessarily equate out to regular season success. We've seen plenty of teams that have gone 3-0 or 4-0 in the preseason, and they fall flat on their face when we get to the regular season. I think what makes this particular Seattle Seahawks team different with the preseason success they're having is they've been building this process slow and steadily out throughout the offseason. It is in the hiring of Clint Kubiak. It is in getting the full participation of all the vets in the voluntary OTAs like they did. That showed you that you were getting the buy-in of these vets, showed you were getting the buy-in of all the players across the board, recognizing we've got to put in this hard work in the June, in the May period, and so we can be that much better when we get into training camp. And then it's the training camp practices where you hear about so many media members about the intensity of these training camp practices, about how hard these players are going on both sides of the ball, and that it's not nearly one side of the ball dominating the other, but both sides of the ball each having their certain days that they're going to win the day a little bit. And you then build that to the preseason games where now you're feeling that success in the preseason games on the back of all this hard work, on the back of some very smart decisions. Do I know if this team's going to be great this year or able to go out there and win the division? I don't know it. Nobody does at this point. But am I going to be surprised in the least if this team is able to go out there and be mighty successful this year, knowing how many wins they've gotten throughout the course of this offseason, knowing that they got the right coach in Mike McDonald? You better believe it. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.